Senator, do you have confidence in Secretary Noem?
None at all. Stephen Miller never fails to live up to my expectations of incompetence. I think if Noem looks at her body of work, I could not be. If I were in her position, I can't think of any point of pride over the last year. I can tell you, if I were president, neither one of them would be in Washington right now.
Now, look, that wasn't some wide-eyed, wild-eyed Democrat, some Trump hater that loves to take jabs at members of Trump's administration. That was actually a Republican senator. Tom Tillis is his name, if you're not familiar. And he's excoriating DHS Secretary Kristi Noem and Trump aide Stephen Miller for their handling of immigration operations in Minnesota. And there isn't much I agree with Tom Tillis, I should say. There's a lot I disagree with him on. However, I always respect individuals who are willing to call out the flaws within their own party, something that you don't see from many Republicans who, behind closed doors, will trash Trump, much like Senator Ted Cruz will do as he's speaking with his donors. But when it comes to speaking to Trump or what their public-facing commentary is about the administration, they're always willing to defend. They're always willing to say glowing things about the Trump administration. In this case, you have Tom Tillis, who's willing to tell the truth. And so before I give you more from Tillis, there are some relevant updates to the Alex Preddy story that I want to share with you. For instance, Anderson Cooper had an interview with a woman by the name of Stella Carlson. And if you're unfamiliar with her, she's the woman who was actually recording the video of Preddy's killing, which of course directly contradicted the statements that were made by the federal government, especially Kristi Noem, Stephen Miller, Greg Bovino, who oversees the Border Patrol operations. They all lied about what actually happened. We're gonna kind of go through how that lie made its way through the administration in just a minute. But Anderson Cooper speaks with Stella Carlson because now the federal government is claiming, well, they're doing an investigation into Alex Preddy's killing. So since you're the one who was on the scene, since you're the one who was recording, surely they wanted to speak with you, right, in their investigation. Well, let's take a look at how that conversation went down and we'll find out.
Have you been contacted by anyone from the federal government? FBI?
No, I have
Border
not.
Patrol, Homeland Security.
I do have a legal team now who are fielding much of that, and I am no longer accessible in those ways.
I talked to your attorney this morning. She said she had not received any outreach from the FBI or anybody from the federal government.
I do not think they have my name yet. Obviously, they will.
You've given testimony to state investigators.
Yes.
Do you have confidence in a federal investigation?
No, I do not. I have faith in various representatives throughout our country who are trying to do the right thing and make sure that justice is served. I have faith in our local government in Minnesota. I think they are wanting to make sure to protect us and investigate it thoroughly, but they are trying to block that from happening.
So that last statement there about how the federal government is trying to block an appropriate state level investigation from taking place is true. We talked about that a little on the show yesterday. And the fact that they are blocking state prosecutors from looking into this, investigators from looking into this, has led to distrust toward the federal government. So let's be clear about that. And it's important to have an independent investigation done, especially since this has been so politically charged. And we're talking about a human life here. We should know what the facts of the case really are without various ideologues or political biases playing a role in the outcome of the investigation. And remember, you have several Trump administration officials saying things that just were patently false based on what you can see with your own two eyes in the video. For instance, there was the ridiculous claim that Preddy brandished a gun. That wasn't true. He did no such thing. He never took a gun out of a holster. He was in possession of a legal firearm, which he had a concealed carry permit for. There were also claims, including from Stephen Miller, that Preddy was an assassin or that he was there to execute law enforcement and cause maximum damage. No evidence of any of that. The videos that we saw provided no evidence of any of that. We never saw his gun until a Border Patrol agent managed to disarm him as several other Border Patrol agents were tackling him. Now, in regard to the state investigation, I just wanted to note that Mary Moriarty, the Hennepin County attorney, is investigating the fatal shooting of Renee Good and Alex Preddy by federal agents, but without cooperation from federal officials, which is a shame. She says, quote, "If you commit a homicide in Minnesota, we have jurisdiction to take a look at that," Moriarty said. She said she had made no determination yet on whether charges would be warranted. And I think that's the appropriate way, guys, to handle this situation. The appropriate way to handle the situation as a government official. I'm not talking about online commentators, right? Online commentators are gonna do what they do. They're gonna speculate, they're gonna look at the video, they're gonna analyze for themselves. But as it pertains to government officials, people in positions of power, people who can actually have a real effect on what happens either to the Border Patrol agents or not. I just want them to be professional and I want them to withhold their personal opinions because we want to be trusting of the investigation. I don't want anyone to come out and say, no, there's definitely going to be no charges filed here because we already know. We already know that the CBP officers did nothing wrong, or the other way around, or vice versa, right? There could be an in-depth investigation into this that finds Alex Preddy did something wrong. I have no idea. We don't have access to all the evidence that's available yet. So I like the way that Moriarty is handling this, and I wish that we had the same professionalism on a federal level, but unfortunately we do not. Now, Border Patrol released some preliminary info on the investigation that their internal watchdog group did. So we know through that preliminary report that basically it was 2 Border Patrol agents, not one, that started shooting at Preddy. That same preliminary report also indicates other things, including the fact that it makes no mention of him approaching Border Patrol agents with a gun, because he didn't have a gun in his hand. He had a legal firearm in his holster, which he had a permit for, concealed carry permit for. So I'm happy to see that the, internal watchdog for Border Patrol did not make this ridiculous claim that he was brandishing a weapon.
Don't forget, Noble Mobile saving you a ton of money. So a lot of people are signing up now and beginning to realize, what the hell, why am I paying so much to Verizon and AT&T? So your bill's only $50 a month, but it can actually be less because they give you money back if you don't use your data. So if you're paying more than $50, there's no reason to not switch. It's crazy not to switch because same phone, same number, same contacts, literally nothing changes. TYT.com/switch, TYT.com/switch. All right, we'll be right back.
Now, as far as the agents go, Bill Malugin, who is that Fox News reporter and appears to be a bit of an immigration hawk, he shares that DHS confirms to Fox News that the Border Patrol agents involved in the deadly shooting of Alex Preddy in Minnesota have now been placed on administrative leave as part of standard protocol after a shooting. Good. That is the right thing to do. That should have happened right away. That is the standard protocol. Certainly, it wasn't the standard protocol after Renee Good was killed, and those ICE agents continued working. They were never put on desk duty or administrative leave, so it's important to kind of juxtapose the two cases. And as we all know, ICE and Border Patrol has been behaving pretty violently with the help of DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, basically providing cover. And she's not the only one, of course. So she has prematurely referred to both Renee Good and Alex Preddy as domestic terrorists, which you could disagree with their politics. You could disagree with their tactics in resisting ICE. But calling them domestic terrorists is disgusting and untrue. She also claimed that he brought the gun to the scene to cause maximum damage and execute law enforcement, which we have no evidence of at all whatsoever. So she just lied about that. So as a result, you have some principled Republicans like Senator Tom Tillis, at least in this case, telling the truth and calling out the incompetence of people like Kristi Noem. Let's take a look.
Senator, do you have confidence in Secretary Noem?
None at all. No, she's. I've tried to maintain confidence, but look, I've done and we'll be sharing this information. We've done a Trump 1, Trump 2 comparison of disaster relief. There's no comparison whatsoever. Trump 1 was right on with disaster recovery. You think about Matthew and Florence. And this one, she's not even handling the other part of her job. I mean, at one point, she thought FEMA should be eliminated. To give you an idea of how incompetent I think she is, she actually thought FEMA should be eliminated. And when she had a FEMA director said he didn't think that was a good idea, she fired him within 24 hours. Now she understands that is an important part of her job. These are like amateurish assistant manager sort of thought processes going into somebody who's a secretary in a cabinet level position. It's unacceptable. She has taken this administration into the ground on an issue that we should own. We should own the issue of border security and immigration, but they have destroyed that for Republicans.
What I love about what Senator Tillis said there is that he didn't mince words. Now, Lisa Murkowski, another Republican senator, also said that she has lost faith in and is disappointed with Kristi Noem. But she's a little bit mealy-mouthed about it, hush-hush. Didn't really want to talk to reporters about it. That was clear. But you could tell she's not happy with the job Kristi Noem is doing as DHS secretary. But I want to go back to Tillis because he went after Noem not once, but twice on the same day. I mean, you could tell he feels very strongly about this. Let's go to the next video.
I think that what she's done in Minnesota should be disqualifying. She should be out of the job. And I mean, really, it's just amateurish. It's terrible. It's making the president look bad on policies that he won on. He won on a strong message about immigration. And now nobody's talking about that. They're not talking about securing the border. They're talking about the incompetence of the leader of Homeland Security and the other people. Bovino, whatever his name is, he needs to go back to California, get his retirement papers, and go. These people are amateurs. They got to de-escalate there and treat these communities with some respect.
With respect, Senator Tillis, we've got our own scumbags here in California. Bovino should find another place to go to retire. Our taxes are really high. I mean, you wouldn't want those high California taxes to cut into that retirement, would you, Bovino? But let's not forget what Stephen Miller also had to say, because soon after Alex Preddy was gunned down by Border Patrol, he said a would-be assassin, okay, tried to murder federal law enforcement, and the official Democrat account sides with the terrorist. So not only did he call him an assassin, but also called Alex Preddy, an ICU nurse at the VA, a terrorist. Well, Miller's comments were so insane that even our notoriously insane president couldn't co-sign.
Mr. Preddy acting as an assassin. Do you think he was acting as an assassin in Minneapolis?
Who is that?
Mr. Preddy, your deputy chief of staff said that. You don't think so?
Now, Tillis didn't mince words either when it came to Stephen Miller. So let's just go to that quick video.
Stephen Miller is in the same boat. This is one of the people that came out publicly and said that this guy was a terrorist before he had even talked with anybody on the ground. And that's clearly not the case now. So, I mean, Stephen Miller never fails to live up to my expectations of incompetence.
Why do you think Secretary Noem be fired?
I'm going to leave that up to the president. I can tell you if I were president, neither one of them would be in Washington right now.
Now, even though Trump has very clearly tried to distance himself from Stephen Miller's incendiary, disgusting comments about Alex Preddy, calling him an assassin, saying that he's a terrorist, he didn't take kindly to what Senator Tillis had to say about this whole situation. In fact, Rachel Scott of ABC News shared on X, quote, "I asked the president about Senators Tillis and Murkowski calling for Secretary Noem to step down. Well, they're both losers. What can I tell you? They're terrible senators. One is gone and the other should be gone," Trump said. Okay. Are they losers though? Or are they telling the truth about the people you chose for your administration who aren't the best? You're not bringing the best, Trump. You're not bringing the best. But what I love, and like the cherry on top with this story, is how Tillis reacted to learning that the president called him a loser. Let's end on that.
They're going to make their job more difficult and more dangerous with this incompetence that I'm seeing out of Noem and out of Stephen Miller.
The president called you a loser, I believe.
I am thrilled about that. That makes me qualified to be Homeland Security Secretary and Senior Advisor to the President.
That was good. That was good, Senator Tillis. I'm impressed. That was quick, that was witty, and that was quite a jab. And so, look, if you are someone who cares about enforcing immigration laws, you should be furious with how the Trump administration has handled this. Because by being as incompetent as they are, by carrying out acts of violence as some of these ICE agents and Border Patrol agents have, what that does is it leads to a loss of public support. And we're now starting to see Republican voters show that they are lacking trust toward ICE, which is a good sign. That means that we still have a country full of people who have morals, and they look at videos like that and they're disgusted by it. And I commend them for seeing reality and not buying the Trump administration's lies about all of this. But the fact remains that, our laws should be enforced, but they should be enforced humanely. And more importantly, our immigration system is definitely broken. So regardless of what the Trump administration does right now, even if, and they're not, but even if they were handling everything perfectly, they were carrying out the exact types of deportations they promised they were going to carry out of violent offenders who should be kicked out of the country. If they were doing it all right, it's all being done through executive order. You don't fix a broken immigration system through executive order. You do it through legislation. So there are a lot of bad actors in this story. It isn't just the Trump administration. It's literally at this point, decades of inaction, incompetence, and negligence by our Congress. They have ceded the duties of Congress to the executive branch. It really ramped up following 9/11, where they essentially gave the executive branch a blank check to do whatever it wants when it comes to foreign wars. But things have devolved even more, especially when it comes to domestic policy and what's happening within our borders. So again, to me, this story is separate from enforcing immigration policy. This really has to do with a federal government that seems to want to be at war with the American people over political grievances. And that's not leadership. That's an enemy of the state. You either want to protect Americans or you don't. And for everything I've seen from Trump indicates that if you happen to live in a city or a state that didn't vote in his favor, well, there's going to be retaliation. And final thing I'll say, there's a lot of mixed reporting and conflicting reporting about whether or not Minnesota is cooperating with the federal government when it comes to these retainers in these prisons. And these retainers have to do with people who are in the country illegally, yes, but more importantly, they have committed other serious crimes and have been convicted of other serious crimes. Democrats would be stupid to not cooperate with the federal government in placing a retainer so they can be deported after they serve their sentence. If you're not cooperating with them on that, then they have a legitimate argument against you. Overwhelmingly, the American people want those individuals who have committed other crimes and have been convicted of those other crimes to be deported out of the country. So stop playing games, find ways to not only de-escalate, but find ways to ensure that we can make the best out of this unbearably broken immigration system. Otherwise, we're going to keep going back and forth with these wild pendulum swings. And at the end of the day, the people who lose are the American people overall. I'm just sick of the partisan fighting. It's all about political victories for one side or the other, as opposed to, pursuing policies that are beneficial to the American people.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.